Hey everybody, Legal Vices here, welcoming you to the review of day 12 of the Karen Reed murder trial. Please ignore the snoring dog noises you may be hearing in the background. I just couldn't wake them up and kick them out of the room while I do the recording here. Julie Nagel, she continued her direct examination left over from day 11. You may remember when she got off the stand, the last thing she testified to was that she saw a black blob on the front lawn, which was 5 to 6 feet long. When she started her testimony, there was some serious Darth Vader breathing into the microphone. I mean, she was huffing it. She was like she was hot into the microphone. She said that she saw the 5 to 6 foot long black lump near the flagpole. If she thought it was an actual body, she would have called the police and told of the other people in the car what she'd seen, but instead they just focused on the bread in the back seat because they found a rogue loaf of bread in the back seat for some reason. But then the cross-examination started, and she again testified that if she knew it was a body, she would have called 911 because a body would be important information to let the police know about. She didn't call the police. She didn't call 911. She didn't call the business hotline when she realized it was a body the next day. She said she put 2 and 2 together and realized it was a body, but she didn't speak to anybody. And yesterday on the stand was the very first time she has ever mentioned that this black lump was 5 to 6 feet long to anybody. 2.5 years after the incident, nothing. But that was the end of the cross-examination. She got off the stand, and Terry Kuhn took the stand, not to be confused with my favorite Japanese character, Domo Kun. This was Terry Kuhn. Terry Kuhn is a UC Davis forensic analyst and DNA analyst. She had some interesting testimony. Said they have standard methods and procedures for collecting and storage of DNA evidence. But from the investigators, from the police side, they received only 2 swabs. Only 2 swabs. That's it for the whole trial. That's all the evidence was for her to review was two swabs. And they asked her to search the swab specifically for dog DNA. And they said the sample was taken from a shirt, complete with air quotes. Okay, air quotes were added by me. But they didn't find any dog DNA on the sample, so the samples were negative for dog. Well, they tested them for a battery of a dozen other animals, and these 2 swabs that came back from the DNA analyst tested positive for pig DNA. How weird is that? They said the DNA results for both swabs tested positive for pig. I guess the cops cross-contaminated it with their DNA. See what I did there? That was funny, huh? But yeah. And the question was asked, what, if anything, could that come from? They hypothesized that it could possibly come from food products such as bacon or pork, something like that. But then under cross-examination by Mr. Jackson, she again said that there was no DNA detected in the swabs that they had received. There's no dog DNA detected in the swabs they received, but they didn't get the shirts, they didn't get swatches or pieces of the shirt, etc. They only had the swabs. She has no idea how the agencies collected the swabs, or what they did to the swabs, or what they did with the shirts, or the swatches of cloth, or anything like that. So all she knows is that she was given 2 swabs, no idea about their background, and they tested negative for dog DNA. And she doesn't like hypothetical questions. She kind of balked at some of the hypothetical questions that were asked. She said it's important to document where the swabs were collected from, but that, of course, didn't happen. She said she wouldn't put the evidence in plastic containers, and she would only use sterile items. And then she had this little bit of a double take when she was questioned under cross-examination about some particular storage methods. Shall we see what she had to say?
Would you put biological material in non-sterile containers?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
We don't have, everything that we use is sterile. All of our tubes that we would use, or once we do a collection, we put it in a tube for the extraction process. Those tubes are autoclaved and they don't have contamination. They are sterile.
You would use a solo cup.
I'm sorry, what?
Objection, Your Honor.
Solo cup.
The objection system.
Yeah, you wouldn't use a solo cup for collection of evidence. Would you say what? She looks at him with this dumbfounded look on her face. What was that? A solo cup. But the objection was Well, I mean, was sustained. Thanks, Daryl Brooks. Was sustained. So that was that little interesting little bit there where she did this, what did you say? Double take at the idea of putting samples into solo cups, because who would do that? She wasn't provided with any information regarding the swab. She went over that again. She said that the pig DNA could come from pig ears, like the dog treat, like the dehydrated pig ears, and that dog saliva could be a source of DNA. The implication there is perhaps they were chewing on the pig ears or other pork-based toys, and then the dog saliva got all over John O'Keefe, and they swabbed up the dog saliva, which somehow didn't test positive for dog, but did test positive for pork. That was the implication anyway. And then they seem to have taken an out of order witness. I didn't really catch the full gist of that, but it was Brian Nagel, Julie Nagel's brother. He took the stand, said everybody was drinking for 2 or 3 hours at McCarthy's bar, and then they moved to the Hillside bar, and then he went to pick up his sister at the Alberts house. And when he arrived, there was a black SUV 1 or 1.5 car lengths in front of him. He never saw anyone get out of the SUV, and he saw the brake lights on. He thought his sister would get in the car, but she talked to him and decided to stay a little bit longer. She was outside maybe 45 seconds max, he said. And while he was talking to her, the SUV moved forward another car length. So his sister seemed like she'd had a few, that was his quote, but wasn't stumbling around or slurring words. She went back into the house, and his friend Ricky, who was driving the truck that he was in, the Ford F-150, he was driving. He pulled around the SUV to go home. He said that Nagel here said that the dome light in the SUV was on, and there was one person inside the car in the driver's seat, a woman, and she was looking straight ahead. So he only saw one person in the car with the lights on inside the car. And under cross-examination by Jackson, he said that nobody ever asked him about his statement or testimony since the date of the incident until around May 2023. And then he really screwed up, because you're not supposed to talk about the federal grand jury and the federal investigation that's still going on into this case. But he said, someone asked me around May 23rd. It may have been the feds. They didn't make a big deal out of it. They just never mentioned it again. They never brought it up, and they let it go away. The next witness that they pulled up was Ricky. And this was let's see, there's a little bit of a redirect here. Sorry. We don't want to skip anything important. They discussed what had happened with his friend Ricky Dentano. Ricky Dentano is going to be called as a witness a little bit later here. So he discussed what happened with his friend Ricky Dentano quite a bit of the time. But then he was interviewed by a cop like a week later. He said a Jeep with a snowplow, that would be Higgins' vehicle, was not seen at any time while he was there. He didn't notice any damage to any taillights, didn't see the SUV reverse at high speeds, didn't see the SUV back up and hit a person, didn't see anyone standing around, didn't see anybody laying on the lawn. The next witness that called up was Heather Maxson. She was a lip-smacking witness, nanny friend to the Nagels. She said, and she made me notice that she's doing something that a lot of the other witnesses have done, which was really weird and unnatural. She keeps saying, "Can you rephrase?" and "I don't recall." Those are weird phrases that people don't normally use. It's very, very coach language. If they didn't hear something or if they didn't understand the questions, "Can you please rephrase that?" It was like a mantra. And the same thing, instead of saying, "Well, I don't remember what time this happened," right? "I'm not sure." It was, "I don't recall." So I'm thinking there was a lot of coaching going on, a lot of these, in this situation, say this. So that's just my feeling. It's such an unnatural thing, and they all do it. Keep your eyes open for that as they continue. Anyway, she said she was in the backseat of Ricky's truck, and she saw a male and a female in the SUV before they arrived at the house. They saw the SUV a short time before it arrived at the house, but while they were still driving, they said they saw a male and a female. She said she saw a male and a female in the SUV. The male was in the passenger seat, and while she was there, she said that nobody got out of the SUV. And under cross-examination, she mentioned she was first interviewed 19 months after the incident, but she didn't notice anything wrong with the brake lights. She didn't see the Jeep with a snowplow on it, Higgins' car. And when they pulled away, she only saw a female in the SUV. No idea what happened to the male that she saw before it arrived. And then on redirect, she said she didn't see anyone leave or walk away from the vehicle. Now they called Ricky Dantano. He was the guy that drove the F-150. He was the F-150 driver, and the prosecutor had this incredibly difficult time pronouncing Dantano for some reason. He kept calling him D'Antano or D'Antuano. It was kind of weird. But when he said, when the witness Ricky said that when they arrived at the Albert's house, there was an SUV parked in front of him. There was no damage to the SUV at the time. The interior light of the SUV was on, and then Julie Nagel came out to the truck to say that she would stay, and then she went back into the Albert's house. He said the SUV stayed where it was. You remember a couple of the other witnesses have testified that it was close, and then it moved forward at some point. He said it remained where it was, and the prosecutor's response to his own witness saying that was a big sigh. Then cross-examination started. He said he didn't see or hear anyone arguing in front of the Albert house. Didn't see any of that. That didn't happen anywhere. The state police or the district attorney didn't talk to him at all during 2022. The first time he gave a statement was on May 16th in 2023. So, and they said, just about a year ago was the first time you gave any statement about your memory of what occurred. And he said yes. He said the first time he was approached by the state police in relation to this case was 22 September 2023. So obviously he talked to the feds in May, but 22 September 2023 was the first time he talked to anyone from the state about that. And he said he didn't notice anybody in or around the SUV or laying on the ground. And then the final witness of the day, Allison McCabe, took the stand. She said that Colin Albert called him and called her and asked for a ride. It was normal for him to do so. When he was drinking or whatnot, he would call her and have her give her a ride. Colin texted around midnight to pick him up, and Brian Albert is her uncle. She arrived and texted Colin here. Took a few minutes for him to come out. She didn't want to go in the house. Said Colin wasn't overly intoxicated. Excuse me. Didn't say he wasn't intoxicated. Wasn't overly intoxicated, whatever that means. No injuries on him. Normal demeanor, and got home around 12:30. And then the prosecutor asked a stupid prosecutor question. I said, let's turn our attention to the following day. At some point, you woke up, correct? Yeah, duh. Of course you woke up. Then they did a quick voir dire, as we say in Utah, did a quick voir dire of the witness by the prosecution. And again, the voir dire is sort of like a little mini hearing within the hearing to see if they can introduce certain evidence. And the prosecutor was asking difficult and confusing questions, and the judge got him and told him that he has to keep the questions simple so that they can get through this voir dire. And then there was a whole long line of questions about how iPhone messaging works. But then she also said that she got rid of her previous phone in December of 2022. And on the phone, she doesn't remember what happened to the old phone. Maybe she traded it in, but nobody ever asked her for her old phone. And then under cross-examination on the voir dire, she said that it's possible to. She said she didn't know that it was possible to change the timestamp on messages on iPhones. I didn't know it was possible to change the timestamp on messages either, but apparently you can. I know you can change the time zones, but I didn't know you could change the minutes and seconds of individual iPhone messages the way the defense lawyer was making it sound. So I learned something, I guess. And then the voir dire ended. The jury came back in, and the prosecution showed some text messages, screen captures, and then showed some pictures of him, of Colin, and that was the end. Under cross-examination, she said she's known Colin for her whole life. Her and Colin's mother grew up together. Colin's one of her best friends. And he said, you claim you took a screenshot of some text messages. And then that was the screenshot that was shown a little bit earlier by the prosecutor. But she never gave anyone a copy of the screenshot. She was asked for it and turned it over in August of 2023. So like 19 months after it happened. She doesn't know if the screenshot was from her old phone or her new phone. She was interviewed by the police by Zoom, and her mother was present. And again, she was asked about sending messages and manipulating messages on the iPhone. She testified that she's never deleted any messages, but in that particular thread that was shown. But you wouldn't be able to tell from a screenshot. And then at 12:10 a.m., she said here, she knows you can change the time zones on the phone, but you can just choose any time zone you want. But changing the minutes and seconds, she didn't know. The state didn't ask her for her phone, and she didn't offer to show the message to anyone until the August 2023. Now, she said that This was a little bit brutal under cross-examination here. She dropped Colin off at his home around 12:30 or so. And all of this was on this Life 360 tracking app that was on her phone. She went home and stayed. That's what she said. She arrived at home around 12:30-ish. But then she was saying that under cross-examination, the defense lawyer was saying she arrived home at like 12:04, and then she left again at 12:06 and drove 7 miles. Then she got home, and then she left home again at 12:26 and went to the local school. I guess she's denying she did any of this. 12:29, she arrives home again, and then she left home again at 1:15 a.m. She disagreed and doesn't believe it and says she can't explain it. At 1:28, she arrives at the high school, and then she arrives home again at 1:30, but she doesn't recall any of this and again denies it happened. I mean, that's a lot of time leaving the house. And just the way she was acting and the way it sounds like there were, just to me, my own personal opinion, there was something shady going on. She was doing something that she couldn't talk about or rat anyone out about, I think. I don't know. I don't know what she was doing. I don't know what it was, but there may have been something that she couldn't talk about or raise with anyone. And she said, and he asked her to pick her up. She sent a message saying, "I'm here." He replied, "I'm coming out." And then she drove straight home. Didn't see any other cars or anything unusual outside the house. Got home. Colin said he got home about 12:20. No, she got home about 12:20. All right, sorry. I got confused there for just a quick second. She got home around 12:20, he said. She knows the O'Keefes because all right, I have transferred my messages to the wrong place. Let me move this back to where it goes, and then we'll get right back into. There we go. I don't edit, so this is what happens. Then under redirect, she said that she'd upgraded her phone. She didn't delete any messages in the thread about the screenshot. She has no knowledge about the accuracy of the Life 360 app, but she did say people were bothering her and harassing her family. People, bloggers and people online were harassing her and her family. But she said something very, very interesting. Something that was actually quite shocking, I thought. Let's hear it from her while she talks about this harassment that had occurred to her and her family.
Well, basically harassment.
Harassment by whom?
Bloggers, people online.
And what, if anything, in relation to Colin Albert being in the house has occurred as far as the harassment that you're talking
about? Can you rephrase?
Again, there's that weird rephrasing.
What you were talking about as far as the relevancy of Colin Albert being in the house at that time, what, if any, harassment was there in relation to that and in relation to Colin?
Well,
no, go ahead. She can answer.
Colin wasn't at the house, so he's being harassed he was not at the house when John was there, so I drove him home.
Colin was not at the house when John was there. She just placed John at the house when literally every witness that's been called for the prosecution so far has said John wasn't at the house. She just very naturally says she's upset by all the harassment she's getting because they're saying that Colin was at the house when John was there, and Colin wasn't at the house when John was there.
So people are harassing him saying he was at the house when it's not true.
So that was very interesting. She placed John at the house. And then I know I said she was the last witness. I meant the last full witness because Colin Albert was called to the stand next, and his direct examination was kind of brief and empty. He doesn't look like a tough guy killer. And then this happened when he was when he was a senior in high school. I said he got home around 12:20 a.m., but both of his parents had testified that he got home at 12:10 a.m., if you remember. He knows the O'Keefes because his parents are good friends with him, and they live at the top of their street. He has no animosity against O'Keefe, but he's a good guy. He said O'Keefe was a good guy. And he did some more of that. Can you rephrase that weird question stuff? He said he drinks Bud Light. Absolutely no surprise there. Drank some beers and went to Uncle Brian's house to celebrate his cousin Brian's birthday. And everybody was laughing around, hanging around at the kitchen until he went home. And that was the end of the testimony. That was the end of the day. We're going to pick it up with Colin Albert's cross-examination on day 13. We'll see you there live. Go check it out.